Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, it's another Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, and I'm sure glad that you're here joining me for another edition of Someone You Should Know. I say it every time is I am so thrilled to have all of you with us, and those that are here on a regular basis. Thank you from all over the country. The comments are wonderful. And if you're kind of new to the show, please go in and like us, share the show with your friends and family and everything, and stick with us. I appreciate it. Also, big shout out and thank you to Christine Dean, who is a sponsor of the show and also the producer of the show. So, Christine, thank you again for all that you do. And we are brought to you in part today by Irving Chung, who is an independent franchise specialist. Now, there may be coming a time in your life when you say, I'm really maybe tired of putting in my 80 hours a week or so, and maybe I'd like to work for myself either on a full-time or a part-time basis. Franchising might be the way to go. It does not cost an arm and a leg. Reach out to Irving. Sit down, have a little chat with him at no cost, and find out a little bit more about franchising. Might just surprise you how inexpensive it is to get into franchising. Well, today I'm going to share the story of somebody that I've just I guess I recently met her face to face on today's show, but we have been chatting back and forth because a mutual friend who has been on this show a few times, the telephone doctor, Nancy Friedman, told me about this young lady who has a Facebook page that is incredible. And I think you're going to find it incredible too, because if you like to binge watch TV, this is the Facebook page you got to visit. It's called Binge or Cringe. And the founder of Binge or Cringe is right here, right next to me, Jamie Joffe. Hey,
hello.
There you are.
Hi. It's a Facebook group, by the way, not a page. It's a group.
It's a group. That's right. Yeah, it's not just a regular Facebook.
I should have a Facebook page, but we don't.
Yes. Yeah, and you have to be invited to be in this group. But you can sign up and follow it. It is so much fun. I have learned so much about a lot of the new series that are coming out on all platforms, Netflix and Prime and every one of them. The people that are on the page, it's so much fun because we watch these different series and then we comment on them. And most people are in love with them, but every once in a while, and I do it myself, I say it wasn't exactly all that I thought it was going to be. But it is so much fun to share that information with other people. Where did this all come from, Jamie? Where did you get the idea for this Binge or Cringe page?
Well, I sold my company and retired.
You're too young to retire. You're too young to retire.
Anyway, I was a publicist. I always say I'm a publicist in recovery because I was so traumatized by the whole experience, even though I had got to do so many amazing things. And I had started my own business after getting fired for the third time from a client or from a company because I was never able to I had to get everything done. So that being said, I was not working. I had insomnia. I had anxiety. I was like, what is going to happen here? I don't know how I'm going to, whatever. So it just was awful. So I wasn't sleeping. And I put on a show called The Affair, which was on Showtime, and started binge watching it. And this is like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And what wound up happening was I wanted to talk to somebody about it. I had a lot of questions. Could be that
Yeah,
I was
who
a
can I call at
publicist.
2:30 in the morning?
Exactly. I mean, I was trying to think like who might be up at that point, but I knew no one was going to be. And I just found it rude. So I wound up starting a Facebook group. And I don't know what happened, but it sort of grew and it grew. And then in 2020, there was a pandemic and people were online and they were on their social media, and that's what happened. It like blew up. So I'm still kind of putting my hands around it, I guess.
And you said that was, I mean, if there is a good thing that the pandemic spawned, it was that people were stuck at home. They were either working from home or they weren't working, or they just had a lot of extra time to sit on the couch and pick up the remote and what am I going to watch? And then, as you said, they start sharing ideas. Somebody says, oh, there's this TV series or there's this movie or whatever. You got to see it. And everybody started seeing it and sharing the information. And then all of a sudden you put together a group that says, hey, everybody, come on in here into the group and all, and share that information with each other and comment on it.
And the big thing was, Stuart, is that I didn't want any drama. The world has been such an insane place. So you could not talk about anything politics, nothing. I know that sometimes art imitates life, or life imitates art. So it's sort of hard, sometimes you have to figure out your way around those conversations. But that's what I wanted it to be, a respite for people who just wanted to talk about TV. It's not that deep.
Yeah, well, and you make it very, very clear that, look, this is not a place to really vent your frustrations and everything. If there's a series that you don't care about it, say so, but in a positive way. And I have said that because there have been a couple series that I watched that I thought the acting was good, but the storyline was weak. Or maybe there were some. Most recently, I watched one and I said that the only thing that bothered me was that the actors were too well known. They were too identifiable and all, and maybe they should have brought somebody in that was less popular, less well known. But people are very, very supportive of the page and the conversation, and a lot of them are just simply say, I loved it too, or I agree with so and so, or I disagree about this, or I give it a 4 out of 5. And that's the fun part of it, is because if you're looking at this and you haven't seen the series that is in question, you form your own opinion. Okay, I want to watch it to get formulate my own opinion. Or you know what? There's too many people that said it really wasn't worth the time. Maybe I'll pass on that one. And
Exactly. And
yeah, and I mean, some people, I just watched a couple that was like 10 episodes. It's a limited series, they say. Okay, fine. I watched it. It was terrific. Now I'm saying I can't wait for season 2. Then there's others,
and it starts to get overwhelming.
It does.
A lot of people are always like, Jamie, what are you watching? And the reality is that I watch the dumbest TV because I'm always sometimes I'll really get like Ozark. I was all in certain movies, but I watch a lot of nonsense TV, a lot of documentaries, which aren't necessarily nonsense, a lot of true crime, and a lot of Bravo and the worst wreck that my PBS loving parents would be horrified if they only knew what I was watching. It's just so bad. Anyway, so
and there, there's only so many hours in a day, and you can only watch so many things. Do do you kind of skip around a little bit and watch an episode or two of something that's maybe one season, and then maybe go to something else where it might take you 2 or 3 months to watch because there's 5 or 6 seasons?
I think that's sort of a combination of the two. I wind up watching things that, I'm just trying to get a taste of it. So now that I have to tell everybody what I'm watching, I wind up looking up YouTube, and, I might wind up watching the pilot or whatever it might be. But I also, like, my shows, I'm pretty, old school prime time, 8 o'clock, like, I try and watch it when it airs. I don't know if it's, me being older, but I rarely, like, my main shows, I try and always watch when they're on. And then the Netflix stuff I'll stream and
Yeah.
binge.
Well, and this goes beyond series also for those that are watching and listening, because a lot of the comments that come on, it might be a movie. It might be a movie that's just been released in the theaters. It might be a movie that's just been shown on Netflix or Prime or any of the other platforms. And sometimes it's a really good movie that somebody says, "Hey, did you just watch this?" Case in point, I just commented on watching The Gray Man, with Ryan Gosling and all. Thought it was going to be a really good movie because I like Ryan Gosling, but it was just constant fighting and shoot 'em up and all, and it left me a little bit flat. And I said that on Binge or Cringe, and all. Lots of comments came back, and some for, some against. And that's the beauty of it, because that gives other people that are watching these comments going back and forth the ability to say, you know what, maybe I'll pass on this one, or you know what, I want to watch this and see, because I do like shoot 'em ups and that kind of stuff too. So that's the beauty of the site, and you've got just thousands of followers and that are participating in this, and it's a matter of you're spending the time watching what people are saying, and then you're saying, well, I got to get over to the TV because I got to start watching some of these series. So
It's
yeah,
people are so passionate about what they watch. I mean, when the new Sex and the City sequel came out, you would have thought that it was crazy how upset people were. And really upset, and I'm never watching this show again, and I did it. So people are very passionate about whether they like something or not.
yeah, and how do you feel personally about sequels?
It depends. The Star Wars trilogy and The Godfather. I mean, again, I'm going back, but I didn't like The Sopranos follow-up. And, I feel like there's certain movies that are such classics or series that they don't need to reboot them. I mean, again, not that deep, but Beverly Hills 90210, the reboot was just horrible. The sequel, it was just bad. Yeah.
Yep. I think the same thing could be said, and again, these opinions are my own, but the Karate Kid, when they went to Cobra Kai, I mean, it was
so
just
stupid.
Just leave. And now the latest one, and I just commented on it, is they want to redo Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, come on, folks. This is a classic, and there's really no way you can have a sequel or even redo it or whatever. Even if it's a new generation, let the new generation see the original and get into it. Just like every generation looks at Judy Garland in Wizard of Oz. You don't need to have 12 different versions of Wizard of Oz. Show the people the original. Let them get wrapped up in it.
I agree with that.
My opinion.
No, I do agree. I think I also loved the tradition of watching The Sound of Music, which we still do, and watching it with my kids. But I actually posted the Ferris Bueller thing because it was actually one of my high school quotes in the yearbook. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't, I guess, stop and look around, you might miss it. So that in 1988, that was my yearbook quotes. And I basically lived Ferris Bueller. We were a little naughty. But yeah, I think John Hughes would not be happy if he knew that if they remake 16 Candles or St. Elmo's Fire, I'm out. Like, I'm going to protest that.
Yeah.
So it's not happening.
Or like the Breakfast Club, another classic.
That is one of the I don't like that movie. And people are like, how can you not like that movie? And you know what? I guess it was teenage angst and all that stuff. But I even remember at the time being like, this is such a stereotype. Like, ugh. So I just didn't like it.
And it was another Molly Ringwald movie. How many movies can you have Molly Ringwald in, too?
Right. And she was this like muse or something.
Yeah.
John Hughes. But I agree. It was the same character over and over.
But folks, if you visit the website, the Facebook page, you'll be able to read a lot of this. Jamie says, I didn't really get into the Breakfast Club. It's one of my favorites, and I don't. Maybe it's because Emilio Estevez and some of the other characters that were in it. Judd Hirsch was in that. I really enjoyed the characters that were in it, but it's there. There it is. That's the Facebook page. Just look for the thumbs up, thumbs down.
DMs.
By the way, that is an incredible logo. I love that logo. Was that your doing?
No, I again used to work with an amazing graphic designer before I was in recovery, and her name is Lauren, and she created it for me gratis, and it was such a nice thing to do. It really was, and she's all over the site too.
Yeah. We will also scroll the email address where you can reach out to Jamie if you have questions or you want to offer some information or find out a little bit more about Binge or Cringe or some of the other things that she's involved in. But it's just such a, what I found about it when the first time I dropped in was it's just a really feel good place to go, to kind of get away from the world as we know it, and to either watch some of the shows that people are talking about or just read about them. What I found myself doing is going to some of those shows and watching the trailers again to see if that would whet my appetite. Do you do that too in order to see?
Yeah, you're all the time.
You're a trailer girl, huh?
I'm a huge fan of the trailer. Not the trailer park necessarily, but a big fan of the trailer.
and that's a great way to, just like when you go to the movie theaters, you sit there and you go through the previews. And what those previews are basically are trailers for the upcoming movies. Sometimes you love them and you commit it to memory and say, yeah, I'm coming back to see that movie. Or it's the same thing with the TV series, movies and limited series and also longer series, is to look at the trailers, and usually there's one or more trailers available, and see, do I really want to absorb this show and go further? The trailers usually will run a minute to 2 minutes, sometimes a little longer, but it tells you enough about the characters and the plot to make you say, yeah, I like that. And then of course you go to the bottom of the page and you click on the little plus and you say, add to my watch list.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on my watch list now. Too many.
I know. I went through my watch list on both Netflix and Prime the other day, and I realized that to watch all of the things that are on my watch list, I would probably have to sit down in my family room for the next 8 months.
Hopefully there won't be another pandemic. Gosh. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. But see, there's like I would watch all of this if there was enough time, but And so you get yourself a nice plate of food and you sit down and you watch an episode or two. Then you put it on pause. You let the dog out and you come back and you wash the dishes and sit down and watch another couple of episodes. Nothing could be easier.
It is definitely easier. And I do believe that that's why, some of the stuff, which is, it's not that deep. Real Housewives, 90 Day Fiance, Survivor. We're going to have Snake in the Grass. They're Amazing Race. I mean, they're not that deep, but I can sort of do what I need to do while I'm watching them. So I'll fold laundry or whatever it might be.
Yeah, multitasking.
Multitasking.
So now, all of this stuff, is this what you grew up wanting to do, or what's your background? Where are you from, and where did you study, and what did you study before you ended up starting Binge and Cringe?
How far back do we want to know? Okay. So anyway, I grew up in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, Lower Merion, and I went to Syracuse University and then Temple. While I was at Syracuse, I was lucky enough to be in the Newhouse School. So over the years, I've really made some great contacts. I was a PR major. I may be the only person who's a PR major that stayed in PR their entire career until now. So I had a lot of clients in the music industry. Part of my job, there was a headphone company. Well, you probably know who they are now because Apple bought them, but there was a headphone company called Beats by Dre, and it was my job to seed them to different people in the fashion lifestyle industry, which is sort of what I was able to do from being at Syracuse, networking, all that kind of fun stuff. And then I wound up just staying in the industry. I worked for a couple of places. I got fired. And then when I had my second son, the last, which would never happen now, but my last boss threw a book at me. And so his boss sent me a message and he said, Jamie, you're great. And you're very creative and you do what, you write well. He's like, but you cannot be here anymore. So I will be your first client. And that's who became my first client. And I wound up for years. I grew this business and I really fell into the consumer electronics and music industries. Got to go to the Grammys and the Oscars and South by Southwest and work with some amazing artists. Pete Townsend, I got to work at when I worked for Gibson. So I really fell into it. I mean, when I tell you that I fell into this actual business, if I hadn't been fired, I don't know what I would have done. So in about 2016, 2017, I was really burnt out. I was just burnt out. And one of my key people left and I was just devastated and I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I just couldn't do it. And I'm very lucky. I have an awesome husband who was like, I just want you to be happy. He's like, we're going to need to change our life a little bit, but you need to make sure that, you're okay. So while I've always been sort of behind my clients, I never was sort of out there. So that's why I think it's so strange. But I always a huge pop culture person and working in the industry, you become obsessed because it's so not that deep. So I loved it.
Right. You talk about pop culture and all. I mean, first of all, you mentioned Pete Townsend. Oh my gosh. I mean, he's one of my heroes. I love everything he's ever done. And
Me
then
too.
you did work as publicist. Was it for Gibson Guitars?
Mhm.
For man, that must have been a lot of fun too.
That was one of the greatest experiences of my life. The coolest thing was my assistant who was with me at the time, we were at, I don't know, like NAMM or some show, was the Beach Boys needed a backup singer. Someone had gotten a stomach virus and they let Mary sing. And I was like, I have the coolest job ever. And I never got to meet Stevie Wonder, though I stalked him. But I did get to meet a lot of people, and I really had some amazing mentors. So I tried to learn how to play the guitar. I can sort of play the piano. Uh, yeah. So that pretty much, even though Gibson was a great client, I couldn't quite never really happened. But I have some really nice AV gear.
And now, I also in some of the information I read about you are the co-creator of a group called Done. And I'll tell the audience a little bit about what Done is, because it's kind of like a think tank for getting things accomplished, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's a creative consultancy. My business partner is actually one of my I've known her since she was born. She is a childhood friend. Her younger sister has been my best friend since they're like my sisters. So she moved back from New York. I had shut down. She was working for me at J2, but we had shut it down. And she came to me and she's like, let's take everything that we do well and start a business, because her background was in fashion in New York. She worked for Michael Kors. She was his right-hand person. And I had a lot of connections in the entertainment music industry and doing events. And from there, it blossomed. And we really have been able to do all kinds of things. So my art, I'm innately a creative person. I can write, I can design houses, I can, not houses, but living rooms and things that I just always loved to do, but haven't really, I was working in PR. It was a 24/7 job.
Right. Yeah.
People were burning down hotel rooms, not always a good situation. So this was a good segue for me to get into this business.
Yeah, but and as you said, that this is what you studied. You studied to be creative and to be in PR, and you made mention of this. And I read a statistic many years ago that unless you're talking about doctors, lawyers, and accountants and everything, that only about 25% of the population is working in the field that they studied in college. In other words, maybe
I think it's crazy. I know.
Yeah, they maybe studied to be a teacher and now they're in the retail business, or they studied retailing and they're in a service type business. That only 25% of the people that got a degree in college are actually working in that field. So you have to take what you have studied and learned and developed through your careers into what you do at each chapter of your life.
Absolutely. And it's the one thing I always found. I was very lucky to have parents who were very focused on my education. And I always worked from the time I was 11. But the one thing I think that made me successful at my job, and is probably part of, why we get to do what we do now, is I'm genuinely interested in people and their stories. And I think people do like to talk about themselves, and I like to know, people's background and connect with them on some level. So I do feel like even with Done or Binge or Cringe or my old job, as a PR company event owner, PR and events company owner, is that I get to meet a lot of people and I get to learn from them. So I love that.
And I mean, this is like deja vu for me, because that's exactly what I do right here. Is every week I bring on somebody that I can find out not only what their front story is, but dig a little bit into the backstory, like finding out what you're doing today is really based on what you were when you were growing up and what you studied and how you have developed that into what you're doing doing now.
Exactly. And I actually, to go further back, my parents got divorced when I was younger, but my mom was a true disco queen, Studio 54, like absolutely nuts. I had a seriously crazy childhood, but again, I think all of those things turn you into somebody who I could always nothing surprises me. You could say, I don't know, like I got mad at my girlfriend and she's whatever it is, I would help you figure it out. And I've always been like that, like, problem solving. But everything does change, you were saying, as you get older. I wasn't passionate about PR anymore, and it became like a chore. And I really love doing events for people because it makes them happy, or hanging art for someone, whatever it is, doing small events, flowers, all these things make us happy in a world that's so crazy. So, I hope I get to keep doing things like that.
Well,
Because
and
PR
also,
is evil.
yeah, but all of that you've just said involves PR, because if you're going to be doing an event and all, you're not only helping to set up the event and plan the event, but also promoting that event. And that's part of the PR training that you've had. So,
Exactly. And I'd have to do huge booths at Consumer Electronics Show and manage all these insane it was bizarre. But I think it did sort of prepare me for all of those things, now moving forward.
well, and also you had a cadre of people that you could draw upon, that you interacted with over those years in order to bring them in where necessary in order to help you with those things. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Now it's very interesting because, I've had a Facebook account since Facebook started, and I have Instagram, I have Twitter. I do not have Snapchat. I do not have TikTok. I'm already distracted enough. But it's still, but in a lot of ways, PR has shifted. It sort of shifted more towards social media and content creation. And it's not something that I know. And it's difficult because, as again, my old life and even in done, I want to be 2 steps ahead of somebody. I don't want to not understand what I'm doing. And it's probably the first time in my career, even though I had some great mentors, but I've actually sought out help. I had one mentor in the consumer electronics industry who absolutely was the one who got me, to the point where I was taking on these huge clients. But he wasn't somebody who understands social media either. So I am trying very hard to learn more about it, though. What do you think? Do you understand it?
Yeah, no. I mean, there are some people that just their mindset is that I will do everything my way. And there's a few people maybe that are successful at that. I think that for the majority, they're not. You need to involve yourself with other people that have a little more expertise in some of those areas to help bring together the idea and make it launch. You started working with a friend to set up Binge or Cringe, and because I think Binge or Cringe was a major platform to take on, and for you to try and do everything yourself, it probably would have been almost impossible. You probably would have knocked yourself in the head for that. So you reach out and you bring people in that can help you coordinate and launch this. And now, am I right? You're like over 13,000 followers.
I think we're actually over 14,000. But I was very lucky because I worked. One thing I learned about running my own business is that you have to hire people and you have to pay them in order to you can't do everything well. How's that? That's what I say about my golf game.
That's right.
I'll
Yeah. You
never
can't
be
be
better at
everything to
golf.
everybody. Yeah.
Exactly. So I brought in a woman by the name of Susie, and she was a publicist, and she's meticulous. So I'm very lucky to have her.
That's Susie Pine Lazarus.
Susie Pine Lazarus. She's amazing, and she's just been a tremendous help. And we weren't, Facebook in and of itself is not for creators. There's no revenue stream yet. So I had to figure out how to pay these people. And then Susie's daughter started the Instagram. So I have this whole family of people that are working for me for free. There's some sweat equity there, but nothing from nothing is nothing, right? So we started a GoFundMe and raised some money, and I was able to sort of distribute that. Now, I of course didn't promote it well, and we didn't raise that much money because I really want this to be maybe back to my parents and PBS or NPR. I really want this to be a community. I don't want this to be about, glossy, everything sort of contrived. I really want it to be a community.
And it truly is. That's why, I keep mentioning it. For those that are listening and watching, I want you to visit this Facebook page and see what it's all about. If you don't like it, fine. You can just leave it alone. But I think that more of you will say, this is really some fun stuff. And if you want to make a comment on what somebody else has said, fine. If you want to just read what's being posted, you can do that also. That's the beauty of it. It's not like you have to pay a fee and you have to show up every week at a specific time in order to do it. You drop in when you want to. You learn what you want to learn. You exit what you don't want to follow. And it's just a beautiful, and Lord knows there's how many millions of Facebook pages, but the idea is to be able to, for me, to recommend somebody like Jamie Joffe and Binge or Cringe, what she started and everything. I believe in it and all, and that's why I want to tell other people about it, because you've really and you started this how long ago? When did Binge or Cringe launch?
It actually launched in 2016, 2017, and it sort of was a stagnant, there was like a group of us. And then I guess, again, because of my background and being in the industry, news journalist, are a lot of my friends. So they invited their friends and they invited their friends, and it kind of went from there. But I love the one thing I do want to mention that I feel really lucky about is over this sort of whole 5 years, people really have become friends offline, which I think is so cool. So I just wanted to mention that from the group.
Well, and I will say hoorah to that too, because the person, Nancy Friedman, who told me about Binge or Cringe and all, has been a personal friend for a number of years, and she has mentioned people that she thought would be great for this show, and you were one of them, because she sees the value in what you have brought. And this is something that's only been around for 5 years, and then of course COVID hit, and that kind of gave it a whole new aspect. And maybe people were able to take a little closer look at what Binge or Cringe was all about because of it. Now, hopefully, we're on the backside of COVID, and people are still embracing Binge or Cringe as kind of a social way to learn about what's next on my horizon.
And it's just fun. I mean, we keep going back to this, but I really don't ever want it to be about anything more than what am I watching, and, maybe a funny meme here and there. But besides that, that's it.
What does your husband and your kids think about all of this?
They have actually been my greatest supporters in a lot of ways. My husband said, someone approached me, another member, David Yaz, who's in Binge or Cringe, approached me and he's like, would you like to do a podcast? And I said to my husband, are you going to be okay? It's much easier to talk to people when it's not necessarily you, when you're writing out how you feel versus saying it. It's a little more difficult. And he was like, you can do this. And my kids are like, you're sort of funny. Try it. See what happens.
Yeah.
And I reached out to a couple of friends from over the years that I grew up with who have just so happened to have become pretty well-known. One friend who's the writer of Sex and the City. Another woman, Heather Dubrow. Her husband's a famous reality star. She's on Real Housewives. He's a famous plastic surgeon. And I've just been really lucky, and I have some other great guests coming up, but it's very scary. And I've had some haters. Someone called me a communist, which was a little upsetting. But I guess I just have to, I'm sure, having your own public persona, it's the same thing. It's difficult, because people they troll you and you're like, I'm such a nice person. Please don't do that.
Yeah. No. And here, there again, that's where you've taken it to another level, is to take what you've done on Facebook and now put it into podcasting and sharing the conversation, where it's your participants in the Binge or Cringe Facebook site and all that are sharing comments. In the podcasting, you have the opportunity to do exactly what you and I are doing right now, and that's just carrying on a conversation about what they're doing. Your kids are how old?
My kids are now, I just moved my youngest son into Lehigh. And
Okay.
my older son, I actually saw yesterday, and he is adulting. He is just graduated WashU last spring, and he's living in Washington, D.C., and he's a government analyst, and he cooks, and his apartment was sort of clean, and he pays his bills, and he's a real adult now. Yeah, it's very strange how that happens.
So you're basically an empty nester now?
I've been an empty nester now for 4 days. So far, so good.
You like it so far?
You know what? I have a ton of, my husband is he is very sick. He only likes to play golf, like watch golf, and he comes home and watches golf. It's a whole thing. So I did take up golf. I did take up pickleball. So I had to make sure. And I'm writing a lot. I write a column for a local publication called Mainline Tonight. And I'm obviously trying to focus some time on Binge or Cringe. And I'm really excited because along with my other job, now I have some time to do that. But luckily, for the moment, my husband and I are enjoying each other's company. I just refuse to cook ever again. That was the one thing when that was the deal. Yeah. No more cooking.
Well, with all of the things that are on your plate, I thoroughly am thrilled that you took the time to spend some of that very little bit of time that you have to spend with me and with my audience.
Oh, Stuart, you're awesome. Can I ask you one last question though before we go? What are you watching right now?
Go for it.
What are you watching right now? What series are you watching right now?
Let me see. What's the one that we're watching right now? We just finished with Anatomy of a Scandal.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
That was wonderful. It's the one with Regina King. I can't remember the name of it right now. But
I love her too.
We're actually watching a couple of them because I'm also watching League of Their Own, which the League of Their Own series is a heck of a lot different than a League of Their Own the movie with Tom
League of
Hanks.
Their Own, the movie is, again, I wasn't thrilled. That was one I wasn't thrilled, even though there's a woman, Abby Jacobson, who I went to overnight camp with, and she's from the Lower Merion. So I'm always very excited when I know people in the series.
Yeah.
But she was
It's a
also in
little bit
Broad
different.
City.
But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of binge or cringe, and that is when people mention some. You follow the stream of comments from people, and you form your own opinion. Do I want to invest the time in that, or don't I? And for the most part, I think most people do. And I applaud you for setting up and starting binge or cringe. And I am just totally 100% hooked on you and hooked on your Facebook page.
I'm so glad. That makes me so, yeah. I mean, spreading happiness,
Yes. And
spreading
with what's going on in the
happiness.
rest of the world, everybody needs a little bit of binge or cringe. So, Jamie, thank you very, very much for being a guest on the show. I always end my show by saying, be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And that's the way I end my show. And I look forward to everybody being here again next week for another episode of Someone You Should Know. Again, go out and make it a great day. And again, thank you, Jamie, for being my guest.
Thank you.
Someone You Should Know.